Greetings. All right, so you've gone through most of the components, and I'm going to share with you now a PowerPoint presentation conducted by a teacher who was studying spelling. This is just to show you something that you might want to develop if you're presenting to a group of administrators or teachers or parents. There are some slides that you will not need if you are presenting to various groups, but definitely if you wanted to present at a conference or to administrators, you probably want to include most of the components. So let's take a look at one teacher's presentation. All right. So here's the title that this teacher has put forward. History should not always repeat itself, giving students a choice in spelling. And she begins here with her hypothesis. So she does not include the problem or the question, but you can definitely do that. And I will show you a student who did include those in her presentation. This teacher jumps right to her hypothesis, and students who are given a choice of spelling words will get a higher grade on their test when compared to teacher-generated word lists. So here then she skips to going over some background, a little bit about typically how spelling words are assigned. She talks about the research related to rote memory, and then she shares her grading rubric. She talks a little bit about the participants in her classroom. And then she talks about the method. So she's going to do a pre-assessment, a developmental spelling analysis, and she gives some examples of random letter, early letter name, and letter name in her research. So these are the kinds of the things that she is looking for. And then she does an assessment of her pre-assessment instrument, the number of students and where they were on her particular assessment. That was a picture of the students. We can skip over that. Then the average test scores, and here she has the teacher choice week 1, student choice, teacher choice, and student choice. And here she talks about that there's not a lot of variation here with the students. Then she goes back to reflect. Remember we talked about that reflection. So then she thought, all right, well, maybe it wasn't so much the choice, but the type of choice. Was the choice meaningful? And I know that she had a discussion during her presentation with some other teachers that just saying you can pick the words or I can pick the words, did they really value that? And they talked about maybe having the students take words from their writing, so that rather than giving them a list of spelling words and having them pick those words, allowing the words to be more meaningful. So that kind of goes back to the concept of the words coming from their background a little bit more. And then she does go in and she gives her references. Now let's take a look at, we're going to stop that share for a minute, and I want to go and share another student's just to give you an idea of a different approach. And here we have a teacher who's looking at questioning in the classroom. So she's working with a 3rd grade classroom. And you will see here, this teacher identifies her problem. So she identifies the problem. Teachers are often dominate the asking of questions in classroom conversation, limiting students from becoming active participants in their learning. So she's identified 2 things here. She has identified that teachers dominate the asking of questions. I can't find my pen. And she also is talking about students being active participants. So it's kind of like a twofold problem, right? She goes then to develop her research question. How can teachers facilitate student-generated questions at a higher level of Bloom's taxonomy to improve student ownership of learning? So again, she's going from this decreasing teacher-generated questions and increasing student ownership of their learning and the learning process. She then goes on to the hypothesis: introducing student questioning in the classroom will increase responsibility for learning and in turn produce higher level thinking. And her purpose, we talked about the purpose earlier as well. Her purpose was to increase higher level thinking skills through questioning and to create active participants in their own learning. And this is the rationale that we talked about before. And this is an important component, especially when you are talking to parents or when you are talking to other teachers and administrators. She then delves into the background information, and here she's using Bloom's taxonomy. And so when we are talking about child development, she's talking about what is developmentally appropriate along Bloom's taxonomy for children at this age. Again, she skips a little bit more into the research, but I just wanted to show you a little bit of her research. Again, she's going back into the research. Here's her methods section. So she talks about the students that she's working with, her pre-test, post-test, and she does an ANOVA analysis. I would recommend for most, she has multiple variables, but you can do an Excel t-test, which is fairly simple to do. And then she talks about the intervention and how she works that intervention, what is she going to do, student questioning, what are they doing for seat work, who's posing the questions, and those kinds of things. Again, her data analysis is through an ANOVA, and then she ends with a reference list. So that provides you with a couple of examples of PowerPoint presentations, and you might want to think about something that you might want to put together to share with others as you share your research at the close of the school year or at the close of the time when you do have your data gathered and your data analyzed and you're ready to share those. I would be extremely interested to learn some of the things that you're doing in your classrooms. So please feel free to email us, and the email information will be provided as part of this presentation module. Thank you so much.